Well, today's video is related to friction and friction in the wheel of a rickshaw. Okay, so before that we should go for the sliding friction. Okay, so this is a surface and this is another surface, and whenever there is a relative motion between the two bodies, what happens, there is a transfer of charges, and as we know, if charges are transferred, then a force of attraction, that is electric force of attraction, takes place, and that force causes the friction, and this attractive force always opposes the relative motion between the two surfaces. So if this surface want to move in this direction, then a frictional force will act in this direction. Okay, and if it tries to move in this direction, the frictional force will act in this direction. That means it's always oppose the relative motion, and the root cause is whenever we rub an object over another object, there is a sharing of charges, transfer of charges, and as we know that when transfer of charges takes place, electric force starts acting, and this force opposes the relative motion. And today our topic of discussion is frictional force, how it acts on a tricycle or rickshaw. So here is a tricycle. You can see here is a tricycle, and what happens, you can see here, here is a tricycle, and here is the paddle wheel, and if you rotate the paddle wheel, it rotates the chain of the tricycle, and you can see that this chain is attached to the rear wheels of the tricycle. And you can see here, when we rotate this tricycle, you can see the white dots, and the white dots has a tendency to move in this direction, in backward direction. So obviously when I rotate this paddle wheel, it is attached to the chain, and this chain is attached to the rear wheels, and the gear of the rear wheels I am simultaneously rotating. Okay, so my paddling is transferred via chain to the rear wheels, and the rear wheels are attached with the chain and the gear system in the rear wheel, and in this way what I am doing, I am rotating the rear wheels, and you can see the white dots. The white dots are moving in backward direction. Okay, but in this process nothing is, if I lift this wheel has got no effect. Okay, only the rear wheel is attached to this paddle, and rear wheel, every dot of the rear wheel has a tendency to go backward. Okay, so you can see I have given white dots to make it clear, and you can see that the movement of the white dots, it is in backward direction, and when it touches the surface, it has a tendency to move backward. So the force of friction will act in the forward direction. So in rear wheels, the force acts in the forward direction. Okay, and this force, when this force in forward direction is translated via this rod to the front wheel, and the front wheel has a tendency to move in or to slide in a forward direction. Okay, since the rear wheel is moving and front wheel has a tendency to move in a forward direction, because the front wheel is not attached to the pedal system, chain system and gear system. So every system, gear system, pedal system, rear wheel system, all these systems are attached together, but the front wheel is free from all these systems. and the front wheel receives a force that is generated by the friction force, and this force is translated into the front wheel through these rods, and rear wheel, a front wheel has tendency to move in forward direction, because this friction in two rear wheels forces the front wheel to move in a forward direction. And so the forward wheel will have a friction in the backward direction. Okay, so what we see is two kind of friction acting in tricycle, or in bicycle. The same case also happens in bicycle, and F1 is greater than F2, and that is why the rickshaw moves with the force which is equal to F1 minus F2. Now what happens when we apply a brake, and when brakes are applied, again when brakes are applied, the direction of friction changes. When brakes are applied. Okay, when brakes are applied, this is your F1 after applying brake, and this is your F2. Again, when brakes are applied, F is equal to F1 minus net force. Okay, so you can see here how the three different wheel, two rear wheel and one front wheel, and when we paddle a tricycle, the frictional force in the rear wheel acts in the forward direction, whereas the frictional force in the front wheel acts in backward direction when we paddle. And when we stop paddling and brakes are applied, what happens? When brakes are applied, the frictional force in the rear wheel acts in backward direction, and frictional force in the front wheel acts in the forward direction. Okay, so this much only for today's video. Okay, happy learning.